Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to work through a Year 12 stats question from the AS 2018 paper on independent events. So a factory buys 10% of its components from supplier A, 30% from supplier B, and the rest from supplier C. It is known that 6% of the components it buys are faulty. Now, of the components bought from supplier A, 9% of those are faulty, and of the components bought from supplier B, 3% of those are faulty. So part A says, find the percentage of components bought from supplier C that are faulty. But just before we get into the video, I want to make you all aware about a web app that I have created. Now, this app that you see on the screen here is designed to predict the 2027 Edexcel A-level Maths topics that will come up in your 2027 exams. So now that the 2026 exams are finished, we now have access to those questions. So what I've done is I've analysed all of the questions from 2026 back to 2018 and also including the sample and the specimen Edexcel papers. And I've used that data to put together a model which will predict the topics for the 2027 exams. And if we just scroll down here, you will see how accurate this model that I'm using is. So if you do want to have access to the full predictions for the 2027 exams and also have access to a web app which will generate mock exam papers based on these predictions, that is what you can get if you do sign up to this app. Just go to the link in the description of this video, and also you can get the link to this web app in my bio. Click that link, sign up. You can see on the top right of the page here, you can sign up to the app, and you'll be able to access all of these 2027 predictions. Okay, so with this one, if we just think about supplier A to start with, so 10% of the components come from supplier A and 9% of those are faulty. So what we can say is we can say percentage of components from A that are faulty from the total or of the total would be 10% of 9%. So 0.1 multiplied by 0.09. So this would be 0.009. So this would be 0.9%. So 0.9% of the total components come from supplier A and are faulty. Now we can do the same thing for B. So percentage of components from B that are faulty of the total. So again, we're going to look at the percentage from B. So 30% come from B, but 3% of those are faulty. So 30% of 3%, so 0.3 times 0.03. And on my calculator, this would give me 0.3 times 0.03. Again, another 0.009, so 0.009. So another 0.9%. Now we know that in total, 6% of the components bought in total or kind of assembled in total would be faulty. So that means if we do 6% minus 0.9 this one and minus the other 0.9 this one, this leaves us with 4.2%. So 4.2% of the total components are faulty and from supplier C. Are faulty and from supplier C. Now, the question was to find out the percentage of components that come from supplier C that are faulty. So again, the total would be 4.2%, but we know that in total, 6% of the components are faulty, and again, 60% come from supplier C. So 60% of the total number of components come from supplier C. So what we need to do here is we need to say that 4.2% is equal to, so this would be 60%, and then multiplied by the percentage that we need from the question. So again, the question was, what is the percentage of faulty components that come from supplier C? So if we do 4.2% divided by 60%, so in other words, 0.042, divided by 0.6, this will give us the answer to the question. So 0.042 divided by 0.6, this will give you 0.07, which is equal to 7%. So that would be our answer to the question there. So 7% of the components from supplier C are faulty. Perfect. So that's the part A done. Just another quick interjection. If you are currently doing Edexcel A-level Maths and you feel that you're struggling or you're falling behind and you're not quite getting that grade that you need to get in order to get into university, or perhaps you're a parent watching this and you're worried about your child's progress, what you can do is you can head to my website. Now, my website is in my bio and also in the description of this video. Click onto the link and you can watch a brief video about me and my background. You see this video on the screen here. In this video, I outline the style and the structure of my tuition. You can also read some of my reviews and testimonials from other parents and students who have worked with me on this website too. So if you feel like one-to-one tuition is something that would benefit you in order to get the grades that you need to get, then again, just head to this website. And what you can do is you can book a free 90-minute call with me. And in that call, we'll spend some time discussing you, your situation, your ambitions, what you want to achieve, the grade you want to get, and why you feel like you're struggling and why you feel like maybe tuition is the right path for you. And we'll also spend some time basically doing a free trial lesson where I will help you out for free with any particular topics or any particular areas of the syllabus that you know you need help with. And by the end of the call, we can then discuss whether one-to-one tuition is the right path for you to get you that grade you need to get. So once again, the link to my website is in the bio and in the description of this video. Now for part B, a component is selected at random. Explain why the component was bought from supplier A is not statistically independent from the event the component is faulty. So this question is obviously about independent events. So you have one event here, the component was bought from supplier A. Let's call that event D. I don't want to use A, B, and C because we already have supplier A, B, and C, so I don't want to confuse the letters. So we'll call that event D. That's going to be event D. And then this second event, we'll call that event E. Well, actually, the component is faulty. Let's call that event F. So F for faulty. Okay, that's event F there, event F. Now, for independent events, remember, this is the formula. So for independent events D and F, the probability of D multiplied by the probability of F must equal the probability of D intersection F. So the probability that both events happen together. So what we need to do is work out the probabilities of the individual events and then work out the intersection probability and then just see if they are the same value, which in this case they won't be because the question wants us to show that they are not independent. So the probability of event D, the probability the component was bought from supplier B, well, we know that's 30% from there. Okay, so what we can just say is probability of D is equal to 0.3. Now, the probability of F, the probability of being faulty, we know from the question back up here that that was 6%. Okay, so that's just 0.06. Now, the probability of D multiplied by probability of F is equal to 0.3 times 0.06. And if we do this on the calculator, 0.3 times 0.06, 0.018, 0.018. Now, the probability of the intersection, so probability of a component coming from supplier B and being faulty, well, we've kind of worked that out in part A. So we know the probability of being from B and being faulty is actually this value there, 0.9%. So 0.009 as a probability. So we can just write down that this is 0.009 from part A, but this does not equal 0.018. So therefore, the two events are not independent. Two events are not independent. Perfect. So hopefully that does all make sense, but do feel free to drop some comments below if you do have any questions on anything from this exam question.